There is so much going on. A lot of folks, of course, talking about the debate last night. Of course, the GOP primary debate. I'm losing track. I think there's been now 4, I think. We had last night, you had Chris Christie, Vivek Ramaswamy, you had Nikki Haley, and, of course, Ron DeSantis. I want to get the opinions of our grassroots political analyst, Matthew Hurtt, joining us. Matthew, you in Washington, D.C. this morning?
I am, Dan. It's great to be with you, and it's great to be in Nashville in this time of giving between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I am in D.C. this morning.
So D.C. must be abuzz from the excitement from last night's debate. What are people saying? And then I'll get your opinion. I'm going to play a couple of audio pieces as well.
Obviously, Nikki Haley is sort of the favorite right now as she sort of bumps up in the polls. But not a lot of people in Washington, D.C. watched the debate. And as we saw, this is now, as you said, the 4th debate. The ratings for these debates have slipped each time. The New York Times had a headline that said that the secret debate the RNC didn't want you to see. And I think that's sort of the vibe right now among primary voters. I'd be curious to know who watched it. I do know that Donald Trump had an interview with Sean Hannity, and the debate between Ron DeSantis and Governor Newsom last week had more viewers. And so I'm just wondering if 39 days out, are Republican primary voters a little tired of the debate scene?
Well, I don't know what we're learning from last night's debate. I didn't watch it live, but I watched it this morning on the replay as I was grabbing audio. And it's clear that Nikki Haley, of those 4, is the front runner because DeSantis and Ramaswamy were clearly going after Nikki Haley. One of the things that I noticed, and then we'll move on, but one of the things I noticed is that Haley and Chris Christie, seemed to be, I don't know if you would say forming a sort of an alliance, but Christie clearly, and I played the audio for folks in the previous hour, sort of standing up for Nikki Haley. And part of me wonders, with Christie standing up for Haley against Ramaswamy, does that make Nikki Haley look weak?
The thing here is, and Chris Christie is smart in this way, he's not going to be the nominee. He certainly won't be president, but he would like a job in the next administration. And if it looks like Haley's star is rising, if Christie comes to her defense on the debate stage, he's a friendly, and he may have an opportunity to serve as attorney general or something like that in a Haley administration, should that administration materialize. It's the same as, the last time you and I talked, Dan, we talked about Ramaswamy serving in a Trump administration. And I think that's the mentality of the second tier or third tier candidates. If they can get near somebody who looks like they might serve as president, they might serve in the White House. It's much harder for a hypothetical president, Nikki Haley, to bring Ron DeSantis, to bring a Donald Trump into her administration if that is where the attacks are coming from.
Grassroots political analyst Matthew Hurtt joining us on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. A lot was made, Matthew. You mentioned the debate between Donald Trump, the conversation, the town hall between Donald Trump and Sean Hannity. This comment drew a lot of criticism, a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of hair-on-fire coverage from the folks on the left, where Donald Trump, they say, said that he would not be a dictator except on day one. This is what the former president said.
The media has been focused on this and attacking you. Yeah. Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
He's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill.
That's
drill,
not. That's
drill.
That's not.
No, no.
That's not retribution.
I'm going to be. He keeps. We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No. Other than day one, we're closing the border." And we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator, okay?
That sounds...
Now, Matthew, to me, obviously, the former President Donald Trump, when he says he's not going to be a dictator, I think he's referring to, dictator day one executive orders. It seems like that's what he was talking about, closing the border and drill, baby, drill. Is that your impression as well?
That's my impression. The hair on fire from the left is this is the narrative they want. it's Donald Trump has a delivery style. He has a humor. He's got a wit about him, and this is part of that. But taken in full context, it's very clear that when he came into the White House in 2017, there were things that he could have done. On day one in the Joe Biden administration, there were dozens, probably hundreds of executive actions that Joe Biden took that are well within the law. We don't like them, but they're legal. And if Trump returns to the White House, he's now learned the lesson from the first administration, and there are executive actions. And on the border and on drilling, these are things that a majority of Americans want to see: a secure border. A majority of Americans want to see energy prices come down. We support an all-of-the-above approach to energy. And those things are just not the kind of dictator, quote-unquote, hair-on-fire attacks that the left wants, although, the line taken out of context does play into their narrative. So I suspect my friends on the other side of the aisle will definitely use it in their quiver. It's another arrow in their quiver to attack quote-unquote dictator Donald Trump. It's just silly.
I had this debate with myself yesterday. Does Donald Trump know when he does that he's giving them ammunition? Is he enjoying, living rent-free in their heads? Is this like for Donald Trump, a hold my beer moment, watch this? They're going to go absolutely nuts. Because you're right, Matthew, where the media takes his comments out of context, and then the American people see that, and then their credibility is blown. I mean, what's the mindset of Donald Trump? Is he meaning to do this, or is this just what he does?
Donald Trump is a successful businessman, but in modern television, Donald Trump was created by reality TV, and the persona and the delivery. He knows exactly what he's doing. It was the smartest campaign for president in 2016 because he bypassed the national media, who previously were gatekeepers of the message. And he went to Twitter and he went to social media and he said, that's how he got his message out there. This is part of his play. And it's great. It's really great to have a national figure, a former president, and could be back in the White House, who talks directly to the people and who does stick it to those gatekeepers who really thought they could be the arbiter of what is true and what is not, and how the message, was relayed to the American people.
Matthew, Kevin McCarthy made, I don't know if it was a surprise announcement or not, but that he is going to be leaving Congress by the end of the year. And so that is one of the stories leading the headlines this morning. Congressionally is that he has decided to leave Congress by the end of the year. Now, it could be months before the special election is held in his district in California to replace him. Now, it is a solidly Republican district, but, the governor can take his time in calling for that special election, meaning one less Republican in the House of Representatives moving forward, especially at a critical time with all of the things that are up for debate and voting. So how is this going to impact the Republican-held majority in the House?
You asked at the beginning of this interview what people in D.C. were talking about. And not a lot of people were talking about the debate last night, but everyone was talking about McCarthy's retirement. I was with a lot of principled conservatives last night. Congressman Tim Burchett, Congressman Andy Ogles were there, and everyone was talking about McCarthy's retirement. Everyone saw it coming. Kevin McCarthy does not believe in anything in politics, and we have principles. We're conservative for a reason. He doesn't believe in any of that. He believes in winning and money. And so at $170,000 a year, maybe a little more as a former speaker, that is not nearly as much money as he could make as a lobbyist, as somebody with access to members of Congress. And we see this, in his political maneuvering. He was deposed, taken out of the speaker's seat by conservatives, by sort of the grassroots in his own party. So he's ready to tuck tail and leave and go and make money somewhere else. So this is not a surprise to anybody in D.C., but it does slim, that majority is looking a lot more slim. But I think the American people are going to see what's on the table in 2024. And I think Republicans will come back with a wider margin in the House.
Interesting article in Time this morning where they say that patience is running thin with Speaker Mike Johnson. And they say that Republicans are no longer on board with the speaker as he sort of navigates through the job. What are you hearing and feeling about conservatives from your vantage point in Washington, D.C., on Speaker Mike Johnson? The specific phrase that they said was the honeymoon is over.
You know, I think that is something that headline writers and reporters want to cover. I haven't heard that much in D.C., and we're in the midst of Christmas party season. There is something every night where Hill staffers and members of Congress come together and close out the year. I think that conservatives in D.C. are still pretty rosy about him. Obviously, there are some process votes, some maneuvering. He has to learn the job, right? Speaker Mike Johnson wasn't on anybody's radar before he came sort of out of the caucus as the pick for speaker. And I think that folks are going to give him some deference for a while. There are things that Republicans have to do when we are governing. If we have the majority in the House, if we have the majority in the Senate, and eventually take the White House, there are things that we have to do to administer government, and Republicans have to learn how to do that. And I think Mike Johnson is learning on the job, and I think he's doing a fine job. And I don't think that a lot of conservatives or grassroots, the voices in D.C. are still pretty supportive of him.
I know that we spoke earlier about the debate last night, Nikki Haley. One of the things that she was attacked over is the fact that she has been getting, and I'm going to air quote this, corporate donors. And some of those folks are Democrats. So I'm trying to figure out, and maybe you can help me navigate this. I'm trying to figure out why it is that these really rich Democrats would be donating to Nikki Haley's campaign. Is it because they believe that Nikki Haley, they want her to be the nominee because they feel like she is more beatable than Donald Trump? I mean, Haley said, well, y'all are just jealous because you're not getting all that money. But I'm trying to figure out, why is it that these Democrats would be supportive of and donating to Nikki Haley? Is it because it's like an Operation Chaos? They feel like she's more beatable?
Yeah, the headline yesterday was one of the sort of a never Trump Democrat donated $250,000. I think, today, Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis could defeat Joe Biden. And I think any one of those presidential campaigns would defeat Joe Biden. It is a risky play for somebody with millions to donate $250,000 or more to a campaign that they hope defeats Donald Trump, that gets Nikki Haley or whomever into the White House. That said, you think about it. If Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, and Ron DeSantis could all three beat Joe Biden, then the Democrats who see that may be hedging their bets. So it's interesting to see. It's not as traditionally Operation Chaos as having a bunch of grassroots folks vote in another party's primary. But this is, again, and you and I have talked about this before, people with a lot of money, use that money to express themselves, and they are betting on these horses just like anybody else would, on any at a smaller dollar amount. So it's interesting to see. I don't know ultimately that it makes a much difference, because it looks like the voters, 39 days out into Iowa, the voters are going to express themselves, and it doesn't matter if you get $250,000 or $1 million or $2 million from a left-wing donor out of New York.
It is clear that, and by the way, speaking of Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, it is clear that at least right now, if the primary were held today, Donald Trump is the victor. Matthew, how can people find you on social media?
So I'm on Twitter and everywhere else, Matthew Hurtt, MatthewHurtt.